Uh, Thank you very much, and good afternoon, everyone. My name is Elizaveta Zakharova, and I am the head of the International School of Russian and Russian Literature, Literary Russian, and it is based in Novi Sad, Serbia now. And today I will be speaking about the translation of the children's literature as a subtle yet powerful form of manipulating public consciousness. My focus will be a case study of Anna Starobinets' Beastie Crimes series. Children's literature is often perceived as a simple or innocent, but in reality, it plays a fundamental role in shaping not only the imagination, but also the values, ethics, and worldviews of young readers. It influences their understanding of what is right or wrong, fair or unjust, normal or deviant. In this sense, literature becomes a tool of socialization. And when we add translation to the equation, this powerful is amplified. Because translators don't just carry words from one language to another. They mediate cultures, ideologies, and sometimes political agendas. Let's briefly touch on the theoretical grounding of my speech. Translation is no longer viewed as a neutral linguistic act. According to translation theorists like Lawrence Venuti and Susan Besnet, translation involves choices that are ideological in nature. When dealing with children's literature, these choices can shape cultural norms or expectations, intentionally or unintentionally. To understand the context of our study, of our case study, we should look at modern Russian children's literature. There has been a notable revival of children's publishing in Russia. Authors are now blending traditional values with contemporary themes such as environmentalism, diversity, and even social justice. Anna Starobinets stands out in this new way. She is a well-known Russian author who initially made a name for herself in horror and speculative fiction. However, her Beastie Crimes series, written for children, is a brilliant fusion of detective fiction and fairy tale aesthetics. Each story features animals as characters, but tackles very human issues: corruption, prejudice, justice, and the rule of law. The series has been translated into several languages and introduced to a wider international audience. But there is the central question: are these translations faithful reflections of the original text, or do they adapt their content to better suit foreign norms, expectations, or ideologies? The Beastie Crimes series has been translated into several languages, including English, French, German, allowing it to reach a broad international audience. And these translations introduce not only the plot, but also the cultural codes embedded in the original Russian context. Key question: are these translations faithful reflections of the original text, or are they adapted to align these cultural norms, expectations, or ideologies of the target audience? In some cases, humor, idioms, and cultural references are altered or removed. This can lead to a shift in tone, meaning, or even the author's intended message. Translators face a constant tension between domestication, making the text familiar to the target audience, and foreignization, preserving the original's cultural uniqueness. Understanding these choices helps us critically assess how literature can be subtly reshaped to serve educational, political, or ideological purposes or in different cultures. Here is there we see potential for manipulation. The translator has the power to soften controversial elements, alter cultural references, or even adjust the storyline to align with the values of the target culture. In children's literature, this can significantly affect how young readers interpret characters, actions, and moral lessons. In essence, translation becomes a tool of ideological adaptation. This is there we begin to see the potential for manipulation. A translator does not simply transmit words, they interpret meaning. That gives them the power to soften or omit controversial or politically sensitive elements, modify cultural references to make them more familiar or acceptable to the target audience, reframe characters or moral conflicts in ways they shift their meaning or tone, censor elements that may be deemed inappropriate, especially in societies with strict moral or ideological standards. In children's literature, such shifts are particularly significant because children often read with implicit trust in the narrator and structure. Subtle changes in morality, justice, or authority can influence how they perceive their world. Translation can thus become a vehicle of cultural conditioning, deliberately or unconsciously aligning the original text with national ideologies, educational policies, commercial market demands. This makes the translator not just a linguistic mediator, but also an ideological gatekeeper. In this context, manipulation doesn't necessarily imply malice. It can arise from good intentions, like protecting children, but the result is still a distortion of authorial intent. It is important to recognize the author's background. Starobinets shift from writing dark horror fiction to children's books is not just a career pivot. It reflects a conscious decision to communicate complex ideas to a younger audience in accessible ways. Her background gives her writing depth subtly and a unique edge. And why she matters? Starobinets is one of the few contemporary Russian authors who combines literary quality with social commentary in books for children. She challenges the idea that children need only safe or sanitized stories. Instead, she respects their intelligence and emotional capacity while still preserving age-appropriate content. Her books introduce young readers to ideas of justice, ethics, diversity, and individual responsibility without preaching or oversimplifying. Starobinets creates layered narratives, enjoyable for children, but intellectually engaging for adults as well, much like the tradition of classic fables or allegorical tales. Her approach reflects a belief that children deserve stories that stimulate critical thinking, empathy, and awareness of the world beyond their immediate experience. Through characters that embody both animal traits and human struggles, she opens discussions on power dynamics, identity, and fairness, topics crucial to social development. Now let's take a closer look at the first book in the series, A Predator's Rights, Право хищника in Russian. Originally like this. The plot revolves around the disappearance of chicks from a farm and the subsequent investigation led by animal detectives. On the surface, it's an engaging detective story, but it's also a parable about justice, truth, and moral ambiguity. What makes the translation noteworthy is that it stays quite close to the original. The tone, humor, and underlying messages are retained with minimal cultural adaptation. This suggests an intentional effort to preserve rather than sanitize the original's ideological depth. But that's not always the case with translated children's literature. Um, to conclude, translations of children's literature are not just about language. They are about values, culture, perspectives, and even political messaging. In this case of Starobinets, we see an encouraging example of faithful translation. But the broader practice often involves adaptation that can distort the original's message, sometimes subtly, sometimes drastically. Translators, therefore, carry a huge responsibility. They must decide, should they domesticate the text to appeal to the target audience, or should they preserve its foreigners and ideological core? Final thoughts. As readers and educators, we must be aware of how translators' texts shape the consciousness of young children. Children's books are not neutral, and neither are translations. Understanding this helps us become more critical consumers of literature and more conscious participants in culture exchange. I guess this is it. And thank you very much for your attention. And I look, some references. I look forward to your questions.